you have anxiety or paranoia issues, scroll. Okay, so in the fall of 1971, 33-year-old Sandra Horwath was a newly divorced single mother of 3 little girls. Now here's where things get iffy. On October 1st of 1973, Sandra went to put her 3 daughters to bed, Robin, Tammy, and Becky. Now Sandra's oldest, Robin, always wanted to sleep in bed with her mother. This was not a new thing. Almost every single night she slept in the bed with her mama. But on this particular night, Sandra would not let Robin sleep in bed with her. Like, she's persistent, you cannot sleep with me tonight, you have to stay in your own bed. This really confused Robin because her mother never had a problem with her sleeping in the bed. The next morning, Sandra's 3 little girls get up like they normally did, but there is a loud silence throughout the home. They get up, start looking throughout the house for mom. She's not in her room. She's not in the kitchen. Sandra's oldest daughter was only like 6 to 7 years old, but she had enough maturity in herself to pick up the phone, and she called her mom's work. Sandra's boss picks up the phone, tells Sandra's little girl she's most definitely not here. So Robin hangs up the phone, and then she calls her babysitter. This babysitter, I don't know her name, was a person that watched the 3 little girls whenever Sandra had something to do. Robin tells the babysitter, we woke up and mom's not in the house. The babysitter's like, what? I'm on my way. When the babysitter gets there, she's not in the house for long before she immediately calls 911. When police officers get there, they notice that outside, Sandra's car is in the driveway. Immediate red flag. They noticed that out front, there was a flower bed, like a little miniature flower garden. It is completely trampled. The flowers are torn out the ground. It looked like there might have been a scuffle in the front yard. Police officers obviously talk to the daughters, like, when's the last time you seen your mother? They're like, last night when she put us to bed. And the oldest one, Robin, is like, yeah, I usually sleep with my mommy, but she would not let me sleep with her last night. They call the little girl's father, which is Sandra's ex-husband, to come get his daughters, and he does. Sandra's purse and keys were in the house. Her car was there. All of her belongings were there, but she was not. The little girls told police that they did not hear any commotion the night before. Like, they didn't hear a scuffle. They didn't hear any arguing. They heard nothing. It was like silence throughout the house. And then there is a huge break in the case. They find out that Sandra was friends with a psychopath. His name is Gary Addison Taylor. He had been in and out of psychiatric hospitals for pretty much just being insane. Countless crimes and violence against women. The boy was a nutball. Then they also find out, they end up searching the backyard of Gary Addison Taylor, and they find human remains. 2 women are in his backyard buried, and he was charged with the murders of these 2 women, but they also found other remains as well. They weren't the only ones. But none of these remains came back to being Sandra Horwath. Sandra's oldest daughter, Robin, till this day is still trying to figure out what happened to her mother, because she does not think that her mother just left on her own accord. Do you think she left on her own accord, or do you think that she was abducted? Do you think that Gary Addison Taylor had anything to do with her disappearance? Leave your thoughts down below.
A 16-year-old boy was sentenced to life without parole, and his psychologist does not believe he can be rehabilitated. This story kind of made me sad a little bit, so just listen to the story and let me know how you feel at the end. On May 1st, 2000, in Duncan, Oklahoma, a man named Kenny Jones was dropping off his daughter Courtney at his mother's home. He had to go out of town to Lindsay the next morning very early, and he just thought, I didn't want to get her up early, so she's just going to spend the night with my mother. Well, about 10:30 that night, Kenny got a call from his mother saying, you need to get over here right now. And he was panicking, thinking his daughter had been hurt. But he got to the home, his daughter was okay. But it turns out that his stepbrother, Justin Long, who's only 15 years old, had brutally attacked his father. So his stepfather, Hoyt, was in the living room, and they had no idea if Justin was still in the home. So Kenny went into the living room, and he turned on the light, and he saw Hoyt right here on the couch here, and he saw a dagger in his hand, and he dropped it. He had just pulled it out from his neck, and he was bleeding profusely. So the dogs were out trying to search for Justin, and they did eventually find him at A. Raisin Park, and he did have blood on his hands and also on his left leg, so he was taken into custody. So Justin is interviewed, and he states that he is homeschooled. So that morning, he woke up and did some of his schoolwork. His father came home on his lunch break and thought Justin should have been further along in his schoolwork. So apparently he said he was going to whip him, and he asked Justin, do you know why you're going to be whipped? And he stated, no, sir. But he ended up whipping him a few times, and then he went back to work. So his father came home, and Justin was wondering if he was really going to do this or not. He kind of thought about it for a minute. But eventually, right in the living room, he took his dagger and then hit his father in the abdomen, and then he hit him right in the throat. So Hoyt's wife, Cindy, tried to call 911, but Justin ripped the phone out of the wall and stated, do not make that call, just let him die. So Cindy told him, you better just run then. So eventually he fled the home, and thankfully Cindy had another phone upstairs, and she called 911. Hoyt was rushed to the hospital, but unfortunately he did not survive his injuries. So Justin was charged with first-degree homicide, and they do believe this was premeditated, because he did go to the pawn stores and was buying some sharp weapons. They found multiple weapons in his room, and they could see marks in his mattress where he was practicing hitting his father, Hoyt. Justin was adopted by Hoyt and also his wife, Cindy, and Justin was diagnosed with ADHD and he was put on Ritalin. Before Justin was adopted, he was living with his biological mother, and when she was pregnant with him, she was drinking and also smoking crack. And by the time he was 4 years old, he was SA'd by a male caregiver. And then eventually, when he was 4 years old, him and his siblings were put into the foster care system. A psychologist did evaluate Justin, and he was diagnosed with a rare disorder called reactive attachment disorder, also PTSD, severe anxiety, and a fear of males. Justin thought he was going to have a better life with his adoptive parents, but it didn't seem like that was the case. And by the time he was 10 or 11, that's when Hoyt started hitting him with the belt. But according to his step-siblings, they never saw Hoyt hit him, and he was never abused by him. And there was no evidence to confirm that this actually happened. A friend of Justin claims he thinks he is disturbed because one minute he would be having a good day, and then the next a light switch would go off and he would be a completely different person. Like one time he had threatened him with a sharp weapon, and he said his face looked so scary, like he wasn't even the same person. And then there was another incident where his stepsister had came home and found Justin on top of his mother, kicking her in the stomach. So she had to pull him off of her and pin him down to make him stop. It seems like Justin's mother was watching him the most because his father, Hoyt, he would be gone for a month for his job, and then he would come home for a month. And it seems like his mother was not really disciplining him, so when Hoyt would come home, he was really on him and disciplining him. But Justin had gotten into a fight at school, and that's why he had to be homeschooled, so Hoyt decided to come home and stay home full-time to help his wife manage Justin. So Justin, at 16 years old, was sentenced to life without parole, but in 2012, Supreme Court said it's unconstitutional to sentence a juvenile to life without parole. But I do believe as of today, the Supreme Court is not going to look at his case, and it's most likely he will spend the rest of his life in prison. So if you're curious on what reactive attachment disorder is, because I had no idea what it was, but after reading the emotional and behavioral difficulties, according to his psychologist, I believe, in my opinion as well, if he has all of these symptoms right here, there is no hope in for rehabilitating him, which is absolutely heartbreaking. To be sentenced to life in prison without parole at 16 years old, he will never have a life outside of prison. He already had a horrible life to begin with. And then, apparently Hoyt was abusing him as well. And he does admit, Justin does state he does have anger issues. He does admit that. But he believes in hope to a chance to get released. But do you guys think that he deserves a chance at parole? Because he's not the same person like he was when he was 16. But while he's been in prison, he got his GED, he kind of turned to religion, but do you believe if he is released, he will do this again? I'm not quite sure. It's a very complicated situation, but I would love to know your guys' opinions, but this just broke my heart. I feel like this didn't have to happen. If his mother, was not the way she was, this could have turned out differently, but let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions. Thanks for watching. I love you all. We'll see you in the next one, and please take care of yourselves.
So check this crazy ass loophole I just went through. I nutted in the condom. Put water in the condom. Okay? Then, you want to take it a step further, put the condom over a light. At that point, you're going to see a homemade lava lamp. Not gabbing though.
This teenager killed his mom with an axe.
I don't know, but I will say this. I hope you're not insinuating I would do this.
She adopted this child thinking that he would light up her life, but she was completely wrong, because instead of bringing light, he brought darkness and eventually ended her life.
Her deputies say he murdered his mother, who was a Florida teacher. Disturbing story here. Deputies say the murder was heinous, one of the worst scenes the sheriff has ever seen.
People could not believe that a 17-year-old was capable of doing something so brutal, let alone to his own mom, because while she was sleeping, he attacked her with an axe and hit her right in the face. But why did he kill his mom? Did they fight beforehand, or was it just a random act of violence? Carlos Hallowell was a 17-year-old student from Florida at the time of the crime. When he was 4 years old, he was adopted by Denise Hallowell and raised him on her own. The two of them lived in a peaceful area near a lake. The people who knew them thought that the two of them had a good relationship, but they're just like any other family. They also had fights and disagreements, and those arguments led to a mother's worst nightmare.
She's my mom. I was adopted at age 4, and I've been with her forever. And if you're insinuating that, I'm very offended by that.
One day, authorities received a call from a frantic teenager.
911, what is the address of the emergency? 4419 Southwest Point. I need someone here immediately right now. Okay, tell me exactly what's happening. Okay. Oh my God. Okay.
That teenager was none other than Carlos, who reported that he found his mother dead with an axe stuck in her skull. According to Carlos, he was trying to find their dogs who mysteriously got out of their fence. He was planning to ask his mom for help, but when he got to her room, he was startled to see his mother catching her breath and still trying to fight for her life. The police immediately found Carlos's story suspicious, especially when he said that he found his mom still breathing because with the severity of his mother's injuries, she would immediately die. So the investigators interrogated him again and again and again.
My inference is that rarely ever happens.
Okay.
That rarely ever happens, and what I'm trying to lead to is that 99.9% of the time, it's a family member or a close friend or
You don't know anybody.
or a lover or something like that.
Every time Carlos repeated the story, the police would find inconsistencies, so their suspicions grew larger and he became a primary suspect.
I didn't do anything and would never do anything to my mother like that. As much as we used to bicker and get back at each other, fighting sometimes, and then peace, and then back and forth, and then peace again, never. Never in a million years would I ever think to do that.
The police searched the lake near their home, and there they found multiple evidence. His mother's phone and 3 CCTV cameras. They presented all the evidence they found. Eventually, Carlos cracked and told them everything that really happened.
I remember being outside at the shed and grabbing the axe. But other than that, that's all I remember.
There's no doubt that you did it. It's just why.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I want to know that too, because I don't remember any argument whatsoever.
Turns out Carlos and his mom had an unstable relationship, and on top of that, he was also dealing with some mental health problems.
My mom finally got me on antidepressants. Taking those, Prozacs, yes, take them every day.
Working?
Mm-hmm.
What did the doctor say he was? Lying over it.
Depression.
Because of what he did, Carlos was charged with premeditated first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Carlos just accepted his punishment and said,
"You take a life, you owe a life."
This woman is known as the ice cream killer, and why that is, you're never going to believe. It's truly going to horrify and shock you. This is Esta Belize Carranza, or Esty. If there's one thing that I need you to know about Esty throughout this entire case, is that Esty really wanted to be a mom her entire life. The main thing on her mind constantly was that she wanted to find the one, get married, and have babies. Esty's dad was a very hardworking man, but he could also be very distant and cold. Esty was always craving this attention from her dad that she never got. Thus, they had a really bad relationship. And from a very young age, Esty actually fantasized about killing her dad, but she never did. But these murderous thoughts continued as Esty got older. When Esty's college boyfriend broke up with her, she fantasized about killing him, but she never did. But Esty was just so devastated because she really thought that her college boyfriend was the one and that they were going to get married and have kids. Esty ended up moving to Germany. When she was 22 years old, she was working in an ice cream shop, and then one day a man named Holger Holz walked into the ice cream shop, and it was love at first sight. There was an instant connection, and very quickly Esty and Holger got married. So you would think that this would be a dream come true for Esty. She always fantasized about finding the one, getting married, and having children, but there was one big problem. Holger always told Esty that he was waiting till marriage because he was very religious, but once they were actually married, Holger told Esty that he thought that that act should only be done if you were actively trying to get pregnant and he was not ready for kids. So it seemed like they were together and married for years without ever doing it. After 5 years of marriage, Holger tells Esty that he's ready to have kids, but only if Esty is willing to move to an entirely different country with him and open their own small business. He wanted to open their very own ice cream shop. So they do it. They move to Austria, they open their own ice cream shop, and still, Holger does not put a baby in Esty. And even worse, even though it was Holger's idea to open this ice cream shop, he doesn't help at all with it. He sits around all day playing video games as Esty does all the work. According to Esty, Holger was an awful, mean husband, and eventually Esty starts having an affair with this man, Manfred Hinterberger. Esty wants to be with Manfred. She thinks that he's the one, that they're going to get married and they're going to have babies. So she asks Holger for a divorce, but even though they're separated, they're still living in the same apartment. Esty said that during this time, her ex-husband Holger was nasty, belittling, mean, rude, and eventually those murderous thoughts that Esty used to have came back. On April 27th, 2008, Esty shot Holger 2 times in the back of the head. And then she just lived life as normal with his body in their apartment for 3 days. She tries to cremate Holger's body inside of their own apartment, but quickly realizes it's actually a lot harder to completely cremate a human body because we're like 90% water. She was able to create a big enough fire to have the fire department called, but she was able to talk her way out of them actually coming into her apartment. So Esty moves on to plan B, which was dismemberment by chainsaw. Esty put a different part of Holger in different ice cream tubs and then filled them up with cement and then kept them in her apartment for months before moving them to her ice cream shop's freezer and cellar. Esty told people that asked that her ex-husband moved to India, and since it was no body, no crime, people believed her, and then Esty lived life as normal for years. 2 entire years go by, and Esty is still with her boyfriend Manfred, and Esty wants to be with Manfred. She wants to get married to him and have babies. That's what this entire thing has been about. Esty wants to find the man of her dreams and start a family, but Manfred tells Esty that he's just not quite ready to commit to her. So Esty goes through Manfred's phone and actually finds out that he's cheating. He's on different dating sites. He has inappropriate photos of different women on his phone. So on November 21st, 2010, Esty shot and killed Manfred while he slept. And then she did the exact same thing that she did before with Holger's body. Chainsaw, ice cream tubs, concrete, and then stored Manfred's body right next to Holger's in the ice cream shop's freezer. A few weeks go by and Esty actually gets herself a new man. It's one of Manfred's friends, a guy named Roland, and Esty thinks that Roland is the one, that they're gonna get married and have babies. But on the morning of June 6, 2011, it's been years since Esty has killed Holger and now Manfred. Esty goes to her ice cream shop and learns that the jig is up. It turns out during the night, the hairdresser that was right next door to Esty's ice cream shop, well, one of their pipe burst, and the workers to fix it actually had to go into the cellar of Esty's ice cream shop. They were working on the pipes, they're moving some stuff around, and there they find an ice cream tub with a human leg sticking out of it. Esty flees to Italy but is caught and arrested 4 days later, and then she just makes a full confession. But tell me that this isn't absolutely crazy. The entire time, Esty's motives for all these horrific, terrible crimes that she was committing was because she wanted to be a mother more than anything. Well, when Esty was arrested, she was 2 months pregnant with Roland's child. She commits these terrible crimes because in her mind, she's just weeding out these guys because she's looking for someone to like knock her up. And then she finally does and she's arrested. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm happy she was arrested. She committed senseless murders for no reason. I just find it so ironic that it was all because she wanted to have a family and then she finally does and then she's arrested. It's also so crazy, I'm sure you guys already thought it, that for years people were eating ice cream out of that same freezer. And also pretty nuts, Roland actually stuck by Esty even after she was arrested for killing her 2 previous boyfriends. He actually did marry her while she was in prison. Esty gave birth to a son that she will never see because she was given life in prison. And this is also wild, and I swear I've never heard this in a case in my entire life. If you're from Austria, please let me know in the comments if this is even true, because I could only find it in a handful of articles. But apparently in 2017, it was determined that Esty was too dangerous for a woman's prison, so she was transferred to a men's only prison. Someone please confirm to me if that's true or not. If you watched the end of this video, thank you so much. Please remember that these are real people's lives. Holger and Manfred were real people that did not deserve what happened to them. This was such a senseless, awful, brutal, horrific crime. And there's also a child involved. So please remember to be super respectful in the comments. If you watched in this video, please let me know some way in the comments. And while you're there, please let me know all your thoughts and opinions on this case today, as well as let me know what cases you want to see me cover next, because I am batch filming a bunch of videos for the next couple days because I am going on a trip in 10 days. I'm also batch filming for Hot in the Case, so let me know all your case suggestions, and I will see you guys all next time in my next video.
Every once in a while, you'll hear of a story that is not only incredibly disturbing, but at the same time will make you lose sleep and rack your brain over what really happened. That's this one for me, because picture this. She was found dead in her own basement, covered in blood. There was evidence of a violent struggle, such as a broken piggy bank embedded in her forehead. Police assume that she just fell down the stairs and died, but at some point after her fall, she stood up and left bloody footprints at the base of the stairs. Except for some reason, she never climbed back up for help. The broken piggy bank was found sitting perfectly on a shelf at the top of the stairs, and this is just the beginning. Police say no foul play was involved, but I am not totally buying it. This is one of those cases that fill me with dread because no one knows what she experienced in her final moments, but I cannot stop thinking about it. So let's talk about the mysterious death of Amanda and Tony. Amanda was 31 years old when she suddenly and very mysteriously died on October 24th, 2015. She and her husband Lee lived in a nice little house in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, in the Castle Ridge neighborhood. Living with them was their rescue dog Ruby and their 2 cats, who they loved so much. Amanda and Lee married in 2009 and were pretty much inseparable ever since. They rarely ever spent time apart, but the rare exception was that fateful weekend. The weekend of October 23rd, 2015 marked the anniversary of Lee's dad's death, so he and Amanda had planned to drive up to his mom's house in Saskatchewan so that she wasn't alone. But on that Friday, when they were due to leave, Amanda changed her mind last minute and decided to stay home instead. She was known to suffer from really bad migraines, and she had one that day, so she didn't want to drive the 8 hours to her mother-in-law's house. So off Lee went by himself, and little did he know that when he came back home, his life would never be the same. After leaving, Lee and Amanda spent Friday night and most of Saturday texting back and forth like normal. At around 7 p.m. on Saturday, Lee called her, and this is when she told him that her migraine had pretty much gone away and she was feeling much better, which was great to hear. But not long into the call, Lee heard their dog start barking and yelping, in which Amanda tried to calm her down. Then Lee heard a loud crunching sound before the phone abruptly cut out. He tried to call her back a few times, but each time it went straight to voicemail. He also tried texting her a handful of times, but after this, he never got a response back. Even though the couple were really close, Lee didn't seem too concerned about this at first and just figured Amanda was either busy or maybe her phone stopped working. But when Sunday evening came and went and he still hadn't heard from her, he decided to cut the trip a little bit short and head home first thing Monday morning. And no one could have expected what he was about to find. When he got home that Monday afternoon, which was now October 26, 2015, he walked into a chaotic scene. The dog and cats were running about with no food or water. water, and there was poop and pee all over the place. He let the dog out and started looking for Amanda, but at first he couldn't find her. Nothing seemed out of place except for an overturned dining room chair, but then he made his way to the basement, the only part of the house that he hadn't looked yet. When he turned on the lights, he immediately saw a gruesome scene. At the bottom of the stairs, the concrete basement floor was covered in blood, and when he made his way down there, he found Amanda laying on the basement floor, also covered in blood. Lee then called 911 and told them that Amanda was cold to the touch. When Calgary police arrived, they found a violent scene. They noticed a significant amount of blood, and the scene was described as gruesome, and by far the bloodiest they had ever walked into. Upon looking at her, investigators' first impression was that it appeared she'd been struck in the head by something that caused a major injury to the right side of her face, so they thought for sure this was a homicide case and treated it as such. Authorities then noticed a broken piggy bank sitting perfectly on a shelf at the top of the stairs, and when they took a closer look at Amanda's body, they then found pieces of it embedded into her forehead, and little pieces of it surrounding her body. Like I said, this was a really gruesome scene, but this is where things start to get strange. So Amanda was laying in a pool of her own blood, but what's odd is that investigators found weird swipes and patterns in the blood, and then additional drops of blood were found on top of the blood that had already been smeared across the floor, meaning this either came from Amanda after some of it had already started to dry, or it came from someone else. But the most disturbing thing is that authorities found evidence that Amanda stood up at some point after her fall. Her own bloody footprints were found pointing forward at the base of the stairs, yet she didn't climb them for help. She was alive at this point, so why she didn't do this? No one knows. A lot of the blood evidence found in the basement suggests that she spent a lot of time there moving around before she died, which is extremely disturbing and confusing. There were a set of mirrors on a wall in the basement, and this is where the majority of the blood pooled under them. This area also contained bits of the broken piggy bank. Investigators came up with two reasons as to why that could be. One being that after she was injured, either accidentally or if someone attacked her, she went to the mirrors to examine her injuries. Another reason could be that with the light hitting the mirrors, maybe she thought that that was the way up the stairs and was confused and disoriented. Investigators also found a bloody handprint on the wall at the bottom of the staircase, and it was possible that she was trying to hold herself up there. There were lots of little blood spatters on the wall, and authorities believe this was likely from her shaking her bloodied hair to get it out of her face after her injury. But most damning of all is that authorities found bloody drag marks, indicating that her body had been moved from one spot in the basement to another, where she was eventually found. After examining her body and the whole scene in the basement, it seemed clear that Amanda was murdered, but then her autopsy came back, which really only raised more questions. It was concluded that blunt force trauma caused Amanda to bleed to death, and she was covered in bruises and had a broken right orbital bone. A toxicology also showed WEED in her system, but this also confirmed that only her DNA was found at the scene, no one else's. So this led police to comb through her phone records, which showed that the last time anyone heard from her was when her husband called her at 7 p.m. on Saturday. They then determined that her time of death was around this time. But what's odd is that a neighbor came forward and said that on the night Amanda died, around the same time that she was on the phone with Lee, she heard a loud bang coming from the house, and then someone yelling. Another neighbor said that around the same time, they saw someone running away from the area through someone's backyard. This wasn't the safest neighborhood, but police found no sign of forced entry, and only her DNA was found at the scene. If there was an intruder, they would have had to enter the house either using a key or go through the back door, which Lee couldn't remember if it was locked or not when he got home. So then authorities started wondering if this was maybe just a tragic accident rather than a homicide. Like I said, they found no evidence of a break-in, nothing was missing, and the only thing that seemed out of the ordinary was the broken piggy bank and the overturned dining room chair. It was thought that maybe due to smoking WEED, Amanda was paranoid and could have knocked over the chair, and maybe just accidentally fell down the stairs. Maybe after falling, she suffered a concussion. People with a concussion often do little actions to try and soothe themselves subconsciously. It was possible that the swoosh and smear marks in the blood came from Amanda herself, maybe moving her head side to side to try and soothe herself. One thing that investigators couldn't really explain, though, was the fact that her dog and both of her cats had not come down to the basement once after she fell. There were no paw prints in the blood, and it seemed unusual that for 48 hours they never once went downstairs to check on their owner, who they loved. Police assumed that since the floor was concrete, it was incredibly slippery slippery, coated in blood. And because Amanda was barefoot, they thought she likely just kept slipping on her own blood and repeatedly hitting her head on the ground. But after 14 months of investigating, Calgary police ruled Amanda's death as accidental, stating that she just accidentally fell down the stairs and died. That no foul play was involved, despite the gruesome scene and the handful of unanswered questions, like how the piggy bank had been broken and pieces of it embedded into her forehead, yet somehow it wasn't knocked off the shelf at the top of the stairs, or how Amanda was alive for some time in the basement after her injuries, moving around, and even stood and faced the stairs, yet she never tried climbing them for help. Her phone was found to be thrown across the room, broken, which is another odd factor to this case. So although we don't know what exactly happened to Amanda, there are a few theories. Theory number one is that she did just accidentally fall. Maybe she was disoriented from her migraine that day and distracted on the phone with Lee and fell. Or maybe she tripped and fell over her dog since she was barking and Amanda was trying to get her to be quiet. It could be possible that she fell on the piggy bank and tripped down the stairs. Then she lost a lot of blood and succumbed to her injuries. It is weird though that the piggy bank wasn't knocked off the shelf. Theory number two was that Lee was involved. They did have a really loving relationship, but he was known to have a little temper. This was quickly ruled out though because he was in a different province with his mom at the time of her death, and this was confirmed. And he also fully cooperated with authorities. And theory number three is that Amanda was killed by an intruder. Like I said, this wasn't the safest neighborhood, and they did have reports of people breaking into their backyard in the past, but police found no evidence of this. But the smears in the blood on the basement floor could have been from an intruder trying to wipe away their footprints. It was also reported that a bloody towel was found in the basement, but whether or not that was from Amanda in an attempt to clean herself up or from someone else, no one knows. To me, it seems like a confrontation could have happened, especially with her injuries. Even the investigator said that this didn't seem like a normal scene or a regular fall down the stairs with how gruesome it was. It seems incredibly unlikely to have a fatal fall like this in your own home. And although it's rare, I guess it can happen. But the question is, did it? This case fills me with dread in ways I cannot even describe. I just don't get how something like this can happen, leaving behind so many unanswered questions. But it's now been 10 years, and whatever happened to Amanda in her basement that night remains a mystery.
Oh yeah, one more thing. If y'all see me on Love Island, mind your fucking business, bitch. I'm trying to find love, bitch. Y'all had y'all motherfucking chance.
She was a mother, a wife, and a professor who got her PhD at Harvard, and then one day she snapped, brought a weapon to the university, and killed multiple people.
Didn't happen. There's no way.
What about the people who died?
There's no way they're still alive.
This is Amy Bishop. Before she got her doctorate at Harvard, she was just a young girl who was socially awkward and an outcast. But Amy was like super duper smart. Actually, everyone in her family was extremely smart, but especially her younger brother, Seth. Amy and Seth definitely had a sibling rivalry, but they were both like super gifted and talented, like child prodigies. But the thing was, everything that Amy did, Seth could do better. But on top of that, whereas Amy was super socially awkward and didn't have any friends, Seth was super popular. It's like everything just came so easy to him. And then on December 6, 1986, Amy, who was 21 years old, shot and killed her younger brother Seth in the kitchen of their family home. He was only 18 years old. Afterwards, Amy fled the home, still holding the weapon. She tries to get a getaway car by attempting to rob a car dealership. And then when the police finally catch up with her, she has a literal standoff with the officers while she's pointing her weapon at them. This went on for a while before she eventually gave up. But get this, it was decided that Amy ended her brother's life by accident. The weapon just accidentally went off while she was pointing it at him. So Amy was released with 0 charges after ending someone's life, attempting Grand Theft Auto, and pointing her weapon at multiple police officers. It's been assumed that Amy got away with all of this because her mom and the police chief were actually good friends, so the police chief just agreed to look the other way and brush it under the rug. Afterwards, Amy went on to graduate from Northeastern. There, she met and married her husband, James. Amy and James had 4 children together, 3 girls and then 1 boy who was the youngest, but coincidentally, her son was actually born on her younger brother Seth's birthday, so she named her son Seth after the brother that she killed. Amy then got her PhD at Harvard. I told you she's very smart, but now she's the Harvard-trained Dr. Amy Bishop, and she would not let you forget it. It meant a lot to Amy that she went to Harvard and she was a doctor. She thought that she was better than everyone because of it. Amy was very entitled, she was really intense, she was honestly a nasty lady and no one liked her. She's actually been called the neighbor from hell and the Karen to end all Karens. She would call the police on her neighbors all the time. She would call the police on kids just playing outside. She even had the ice cream truck banned from her neighborhood. Amy was a perpetual victim and thought that the entire world was out to get her. One day, Amy thought that one of her supervisors was getting in her way. Amy was overheard saying that she was going to kill this supervisor, and her husband James were both overheard asking people how to make a bomb. And then one day, not too long later, a bomb in a cardboard box shows up to this man's house. Luckily, it doesn't go off. He survives, but to this day, it's an unsolved mystery who sent it to him. Amy got arrested for punching a lady at IHOP because she didn't get her way, but she was released with no charges and no criminal record. Amy got really into creative writing. She wrote multiple novels, none of which were ever published, but they all seemed to be like about her life, inspired by her and her life. Like there was one novel about a girl who murdered her brother, but in the end, God forgave her. In 2003, Amy was offered a new job teaching at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, so her entire family moved to Alabama, and all her neighbors were so happy that they threw a pizza party. At the University of Alabama, Amy was an awful professor. Students said that she had unsettling ways, whatever that means, and students actually formed a petition to get Amy fired. In 2009, after 6 years of teaching at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, Amy was denied tenure, and then it was decided by her higher-ups that this would be her last year teaching at the university, so essentially she got fired. And Amy absolutely freaked out. How dare people treat her so badly? Don't they know that she's the Harvard-trained Dr. Amy Bishop? February 12th, 2010, Amy only had a few weeks left teaching at this university. That day, Amy taught her class as normal. As normal as Amy could be. No one thought that anything was off. And then after her class, Amy went to attend a meeting with some of the other professors. It was odd that Amy was even at this meeting because it was for, discussing the following school year and Amy wouldn't be there. But still, Amy sat in the meeting. She sat there quietly. And then after 45 minutes, Amy got up, pulled out a weapon, and opened fire on her coworkers. There were 13 people in that room. Amy shot 6 people, killed 3, and she probably would have killed every single person in that room, but her weapon jammed. 3 biology professors, Maria Ragland Davis, Adriel Johnson, and the department's chairman, Gopi K. Padilla, all lost their lives. After, Amy just calmly, coldly went up to a student, asked to use their phone. She called her husband and just said, "I'm done." A lot of people think that James knew what was going to happen, but it's all alleged. He's never been charged with anything. And when Amy was eventually arrested, the police asked her about this crime she committed, and she told them that it didn't happen. When they asked her about the people that she killed, she said that they were still alive, like trying to act like she's not in touch with reality or something. When this crime happened, it shocked people. Amy did not fit the profile of what you think when you hear of like a school shooting. She was a middle-aged woman, a mother of 4 with a PhD from Harvard and no criminal record. And when this happened, the police actually took a second look at her brother Seth's death, and they actually did charge Amy with his murder, but eventually they dropped the charge. And as for Amy's 3 coworkers that she did kill, originally she pled not guilty by reason of insanity, but later took a plea deal and pled guilty and received life in prison without the possibility of parole. And then in 2021, by some kind of sick, twisted fate, Amy's son, Seth, when he was 20 years old, was shot and also killed. And that's the case of Dr. Amy Bishop. That was such a wild case, and I was shocked I never heard about it before. Thank you to those who suggested that I cover this case. I'm so interested to hear all of your thoughts. Do you think that Amy just snapped, or do you think she was always a ticking time bomb, no pun intended, waiting to go off? Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section. While you're there, let me know what case you want me to cover next, and until then, I will see you guys all next time in my next video.
I'm not certain about a lot in life, but one thing I am certain of is how genuinely disturbing this story is, and how you 100% will not sleep tonight because of it. This is a young girl who went missing in Mexico sometime in the 90s, and she was featured on a really popular broadcast called Community Service on Channel 5. This broadcast featured local missing person cases, but once Selena's case popped up, weird things started to happen, causing viewers to panic. What happened to Selena and everything that followed is extremely disturbing, so Let's talk about it. So Channel 5 is a Mexican TV station that has been around since the 50s. The channel is aimed at children, with segments airing during commercial breaks on Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. And while some might not think anything of it, it's actually pretty disturbing when you find out what exactly they're airing for kids to see. So each night, Channel 5 would often air a broadcast called Community Service, which features real local missing person cases. Every time it came on, it would list a ton of missing people, and usually a lot of information and photos would be attached to each case. The goal was to air this in hopes of finding these missing people and bring them home. This is a great way to spread the word on missing people, but some thought it was a little dark to do this on kids' channels, because after all, they are just kids, and these segments were known to be kind of sinister and bleak. But this was supposedly done on purpose to show young kids how scary the world can actually be, and in a way it was meant to teach them to be safe. This all had good intentions, but in 2001, Channel 5 featured a missing persons case that would unintentionally cause mass panic, even to this day. In 2001, Community Service featured the missing persons case of 18-year-old Selena Delgado Lopez, who disappeared on April 22nd. The year she disappeared has never been proven, although it's suggested that she disappeared sometime in the late 90s. What made this case stand out to viewers was this uncanny, poorly lit photo of Selena, and the fact that there was hardly any information about her disappearance besides her name, age, and where she went missing, which was in Mexico City. This was odd because everyone else that was featured on this broadcast had a lot of information and a ton of photos, but Selena's case didn't have any of that. Channel 5 aired Selena's photo and case for years, but it wasn't long until viewers started noticing something strange. Every time Selena's case and photo came on the TV, viewers started to get really uncomfortable and afraid, citing the nature of her photo as incredibly bizarre. Viewers noted how oddly terrified her photo made them feel, as it was super uncanny. Adding to the mystery surrounding this whole phenomenon is the fact that whenever Selena's photo would be featured, the TV channel would freeze and glitch out for a few minutes before the broadcast would abruptly cut to static. Because of the mass panic and strange coincidences like the TV glitching whenever her photo came on the screen, scary urban legends started to spread surrounding Selena and what really happened to her. Some said that Selena was met with a horrible fate and that her spirit haunted Channel 5 whenever her picture showed up on the screen. Others said that her photo was simply cursed. Some even went so far as to say that Selena was not a real missing person and that her uncanny photo was actually created using AI. And this theory was kind of backed up when people started looking into Selena's case and found no public record of her disappearance. It was around the time of Selena's disappearance and feature on Channel 5 that this photo started going around. It's obviously incredibly disturbing, and at the time, no one knew where it came from. Some pointed out the similarities between Selena's face and this one when lined up over each other, and videos about the glitches viewers would experience began circulating, just like this one.
XHGC Canal 5, al servicio de la comunidad. Pedimos ayuda para localizar a Selene Delgado López, de 18 años, se extravió el 22 de abril en la delegación Álvaro Obregón. Selene Delgado López, se ignora su paradero desde el 28 de mayo del año 2000. Selene Delgado López, de 18 años, se extravió el 22 de abril en la delegación Álvaro Obregón.
Although creepy, this photo is actually just a police sketch of Derek Todd Lee, aka the Baton Rouge Slayer. Derek was a serial killer who between 1998 and 2003 terrorized Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas. He killed at least 7 women, and before he was caught, authorities released this composite sketch of him. He was officially arrested and charged for these crimes in 2004, but somehow his composite sketch became associated with Selena's photo, thus fueling these really scary urban legends and stories about her death and disappearance. Like I said earlier, Channel 5 continued to air Selena's case on Community Service for years after the fact, because no one was able to confirm if she was actually a real missing person. And every time they did, viewers would still feel incredibly afraid and uncomfortable, and their TVs would all glitch. And as the years passed, this disturbing experience would remain a mystery, as would Selena's disappearance. Then in 2010, Channel 5 would begin to post some really disturbing photos and videos on Twitter. This is a video they posted. It's so creepy, and although it wasn't created by them, just reposted, no one knows why they randomly started doing this. Their Twitter account would be totally normal during the day, but every night, usually around 3 a.m., they began posting these disturbing videos, and by morning, they would all be deleted. One of the videos they posted had a caption mentioning Selena, and it is really creepy. When employees at Channel 5 were questioned about this, no one knew anything about it. That, in and of itself, is genuinely so scary to me, but Then in 2020, Selena's disappearance and the urban legends surrounding it once again resurfaced, and this became known as the Facebook incident. In 2020, a Facebook page of a woman with the exact same name as Selena popped up. It started gaining some traction because users discovered that they had already been added as her friend, even though no one knew her, and none of them sent her a friend request. To their horror, they also discovered that there was no option to unfriend her either. This led people to believe that her profile was haunted and in some way connected to what happened to Selena. This profile was shared thousands of times, and while it is a little creepy, there was actually a really logical explanation for the entire thing. This profile turned out to just be someone with the same name as Selena, and she had really just changed her privacy settings. She removed the add friend option from her profile, and because her page was blowing up and she had no clue why, she privated her account, which is still there to this day. Although a lot about this story is still a mystery, there are a few theories that could explain what's going on with Channel 5 and Selena's disappearance. Theory number one is that Selena is a real missing person, and her lack of information is simply due to the lack of resources back then. There are a lot of missing people in Mexico, especially during that time, so maybe her disappearance was just never followed up on. If that's the case and she is a real missing person, it's extremely sad, and her family deserves answers as to what really happened to her. Cable TV back then wasn't great quality, so that could explain the nature of her photo as well as the glitching and freezing on the channel. It could have really happened, maybe just due to technical issues. Theory number two was that Selena is not a real missing person, and it's been suggested that Channel 5 created her to fuel a fake urban legend in order to scare young viewers into being safe. It could be that this is all a hoax to shed some light on how unsafe the world actually is, and it could very well just be a publicity stunt to get people to watch the broadcast. Either that, or Selena's case and photo was created by someone else with the sole intent of scaring people, and Channel 5 didn't do its due diligence to make sure it was real before airing. That's weird to me though, because they continued airing her story for years after the fact. Some people lean more towards this being a hoax by Channel 5 simply because of the Twitter post in 2010 referencing Selena. Whether the story is true or not, it still gives me full body chills. It's now been 24 years since the story surfaced, but it remains a disturbing mystery to this day.
Imagine going to a wedding full of people only to realize that these right here are not humans like us, and you're basically trapped in a room full of jinns. That's exactly what happened to this woman right here. Her name is Nora, aka the Beyonce of Kuwait. Yes, this story takes place in Kuwait, by the way. Nora was basically a famous singer there, okay? Her and her band used to sing traditional stuff in weddings. Another way to say it, she was like a celebrity there, okay? You call her for your marriage, she comes, she sings, and then she leaves with money. You're probably like, okay man, this sounds like an amazing job. I mean, imagine going to a marriage, having fun, people recognize you, people are a fan of you, and you get money for singing a couple of songs. No, it was amazing until a terrifying thing happened to her and made her quit her job and be traumatized forever. Now, before I tell you what happened, you know what to do. Save this video and come back to it at night so it's more enjoyable like that. One day, Nora got a call. She was like, man, should I pick up? I don't really work today. You know what? Let's pick up the phone. Hello? Oh, the person calling her was a woman, okay? And she basically said, hello? Is this Nora? The famous Nora? Oh, Nora basically responded, oh yeah, thank you so much, that's me, the famous Nora, yeah. The woman on the phone basically said, oh my god, thank you so much for responding. Everybody loves you here. Can you please show up to my daughter's wedding tonight? This is when Nora responded, oh, I'm sorry, like, I don't work today, I'm really sorry. The woman on the phone started begging her, okay? She was like, please, this is my only daughter, can you please show up tonight? She loves you so much. When Nora heard this from the woman calling, she was like, oh my god, these people are annoying. Okay, you know what? I'll make an exception for you. I want to see your daughter happy tonight. So, Nora ended up accepting, okay? The woman gave her the address and she told her to come, her and her band, at 10 p.m. Well, Nora and her band finally made it to the house at 10 p.m., okay? And before even entering, Nora was like, okay, I'm sorry, I did bring you here, but come on. I know that nobody works today, but we gotta do it for the love of the game. Her band basically responded, oh, come on, don't sweat it, Nora. You know, we want to make people happy, right? It's only a marriage after all, right? Nora and her band finally made it inside the house, and the first thing they noticed is that the house from the outside looks normal, right? But from the inside, it's something different. The house was really bigger than they expected, okay? And the decor was really noticeable, okay? Somebody did their job on the decor. You know, Nora and her band were amazed. They were like, wow, this is by far the biggest house we'll perform in. And while the band was examining the inside, the woman came. Remember the woman who told her to come here in the first place? The woman who begged her to show up for her daughter, blah, blah, blah. Yes, she came. She was like, oh my god, Nora, I'm a big fan. And you know, she wanted to shake her hand. When Nora saw her, she was like, oh, what's up? How are you? Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. This is your daughter's wedding? Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's about to be amazing. she shook her hand, Nora noticed something, okay? The woman's hand were dry, okay? And it was not moving. You know how humans' hand move? Her hand was not moving, and she could feel her bones. When she felt that, she started having a little doubt, okay? She was like, okay, I've never seen something like this before. I mean, okay, you know what? I'm not judging. And she was not trying to scare her band either. So she was like, okay, to the woman she was speaking, she was like, where do we perform? The woman responded, you see, we love you so much. We do appreciate you so much for coming. So we prepared everything. You do perform in that corner over there. You see it? Yeah. Oh, Nora responded, oh, okay, that's really sweet. You know, thank you so much. Yeah, let's go over there. Yeah, okay. See you there. In this corner right here, Nora and her band started performing, okay? And what a performance. Everybody was loving it. Everybody was shaking their heads, vibing like, Nora and her band, while singing, they were feeling the energy. They were like, yeah, okay, that's what we're talking about. That's the type of vibes we like. You know, See, while singing, Nora noticed a detail that she could have noticed from the beginning, but she didn't for a reason. It's almost like it was hidden from her. Why is everybody dressed in old clothes? Well, nobody was dressed in the typical wedding clothes of today, if you know what I mean. Everybody was dressed like the 17th century. So Nora was like, what the hell is going on? Nora told herself, okay, that's weird. You know, she kept singing. She was still giving some side eyes, but you know, she kept singing. I don't know the song she was singing. I wasn't there with her, but she was singing something like, I'm alone ashamed. What? I'm alone ashamed. Let me sing. See, meanwhile Nora was singing, one of her band members started tapping her shoulder. And you know, she's trying to communicate but sing at the same time. She was like, the band member who was trying to get her attention was the one playing guitar, okay? And he was like, look at their legs. Look at their legs. Nora was like, what do you mean their legs? Shape of, yeah. This is what Nora saw. Goat legs, and she understood that from the beginning she was not with humans. Yup, she's singing with jinns. If you don't know what a jinn means, scary creature, I talked about him in my first post, go check it out. But when Nora saw this, she was in shock, but she kinda knew that something was wrong from the beginning, you know? Remember when she shook hands with the woman who invited her? Yup, in that moment she felt that something was not right. So Nora and her band kept performing, okay? They were not trying to get suspicious, but you know, their voices kept getting low, and they started thinking about this. Those are jinns, but they're in human forms. And you know, while thinking about this, they noticed something. It's midnight. One of her band members was like, hey yo, Nora, we should go. The vibe switched up, it's not the same anymore. These things right here are not even dancing, they're jumping and making weird noise. It's scaring me. You know, it's midnight, we should go. He said all that keeping his voice low. It doesn't matter because he's playing an instrument so nobody's hearing him. Problem is, in Nora's case, she can't talk, she's literally singing. And this is where she had to step up, talk to some of the jinns and told them that we should get a break. Oh, the woman who invited her in the first place, the jinn, came and she was like, Nora, I heard that you want a break, is that true? Nora basically responded, yeah, it's hot out here. And you know, we're kind of tired, so can we go in that room, please? Rest for about 5 to 10 minutes and then we'll come back. Jin basically responded, yeah, you can go. Now the band went to a small room, closed the door, and they're finally isolated from the rest. This is where Nora was like, nobody is getting out, I don't care. You see these creatures, they're turning crazy right now. It's past midnight, so they're turning crazy. Nobody's getting out unless you wanna. Band members basically responded, bro, do you want us to be stuck here forever or what? We should get out. Nora basically responded, look, the woman invited me at 10 p.m., right? I don't think that's a coincidence. She invited me because she can only show up in this form at night. Look, what I'm trying to say is we pretend to be playing and singing until the sunrise. Once the sun rises, boom, we get out. We don't look back. Now, the band came back to the main room and they are forced to sing and play instruments. But things kept getting worse. Because some of the jinns not only started making weird noises and jumping, they started tearing their hair with a part of their scalp and throwing it down on the floor. Imagine the band playing, seeing, being forced to see all this stuff happening in front of them, but they can't do anything about it. Now, they kept playing for about 5 hours straight, and some of the band members started feeling sick and they started throwing up, you know, after all they saw. You know, as soon as the clock hit 4 a.m., meaning sunrise, every jinn stopped. They literally stopped moving. After that, they stopped moving, the lights started turning off, and the place started falling apart. This is where Nora was like, okay, this is our sign to go. After a long run in the hallways, they made it. They got out from the house. And this was the house. If you didn't notice anything yet, hold on. This was supposed to be the house they were in. This is what they saw at 10 p.m. This is where they left at 4 a.m. You see the difference? They left and they were all this time in an abandoned house. What happened is that the jinns basically gave them the illusion that they were in this house right here. So the bands kept running in the streets just to make sure that there is nobody after him. And you know, after running for a while, they saw somebody. That somebody basically asked them, why the hell are y'all running? Is this a marathon? Or like, I don't. Nora and the band were like, whoa, don't talk to us. We know that you're a jinn. Stop talking to us. So that somebody basically responded and he was confused. He was like, what? What the hell are you all talking about? Nora and the band members realized that he's normal, he's a normal human being, and they were like, oh, okay, he's on our side, don't worry. They started explaining to him what happened to them in this house. After hearing their story, he said something crazy. He said that this house right here has been abandoned before even he was born.